कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य
Namaste. Welcome to Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam for another class in the Kaivalya Marga, the path to oneness and ultimate experience of Kaivalya. In this path, we begin to lay the foundations by first understanding our constitution, the yoga anatomy as it is called. The traditional approach is to understand the 5 elements and our connection with these 5 elements and their placements in our bodies and how we can live a lifestyle in tune with these 5 elements. Let us begin this class, as always, by chanting the 3 Oms. So it helps our mind get into a state of mindful attention and focus and allows us to delve deeply into the subject. This is part 3 of the fire class. We had started with our journey into the Arunachala hill, which is the Shiva consciousness, the place or the portal that is dedicated essentially to the fire element. There is also the beautiful temple. We'll visit that in a class in the future. But taking points from where we left off from Arunachala, the thoughts that inspired me to share, we will develop on those points and understand a little more deeply about the fire element. So let us begin. Let's see. You go to the slides. All right, there you go. So Panchabhutas, we are here at the Sri Arunachala temple of Tiruvannamalai. That is a beautiful place. That is a mountain that Sri Ramana, behind the temple that you see in this picture, is a mountain which is considered Shiva himself, which in the first yuga was pure fire. So a great history, tremendous amount of stories, many of them incredible, difficult to believe, are all associated with this temple. They believe a lot of siddhas still exist, meditating deeply. Maya and I actually saw one, and it was unbelievable to the extent that it was physically impossible for this person to be inside that small cave, and yet he was. And so this place is mysterious, no doubt. But it fascinates me how human beings go to what extent to understand the secrets of the universe. They may not approach it that way. They might think it is earning the grace of Shiva or getting the blessings of Shiva. But in that search, whether it is understanding Sai, understanding Shiva, understanding the Krishna consciousness, delving deep into the Bhagavad Gita and learning and practicing the teachings, all of that is actually a journey into yourself. However you want to call it, you can call it in many ways, but actually the journey is more of understanding yourself. When I stayed with Sai Baba, Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba in Prashantanilayam in Puttaparthi for 15 years, I tried to understand him because he still is an enigma. That's why I don't label him as God, because if I label him, then somehow I feel that I'm limiting him to my definition of what God is. So I keep him as mysterious, a mystery, an enigma. I want to keep it that way because in solving that mystery, and I'm trying to understand that mystery, I'm becoming more and more aware of myself. It is that same approach with all the siddhas who meditate there, with the great yogis who have explored these elements and dedicated portals and created a path of reverential approach to these elements. Not the way you and I study in schools today, where reverence is kept aside and we just regard studying as nothing connected with reverence, and somehow a reverential approach is somehow connected to religion. It's a wrong approach. It's a misunderstanding, unfortunately. But nevertheless, the yogis created this path for us so that through the reverential approach, we are not only intellectually leaning towards these concepts, so in a sense, we are able to absorb them at a certain level, up to a certain level intellectually, so we can begin to assimilate it into our daily lives. But we are also, because of reverence, we are opening up the right side. In other words, we are tuning into the intuitive faculty. We are intuitively also perceiving and saying, aha, I get the connection between the two, and so on. It is that intuition, I believe, and I'm using that word intuition very loosely, but that intuition opens doors to deep knowing and revealing of the self and so on. So that kind of intuition, which we call the Vijnanamaya Kosha, the intellectual sheath, that intuition is what really helps you connect the dots. It's not always logic and analysis. So as always, I beg of you to keep both sides of your brain open. And that's why we start this with an Om. And I treat this as much as important as powerful as any satsang, if you will, not just a class. So having said that, paying obeisance to this wonderful temple in our hearts, let's begin this journey into the Agni Tatwa and try to summarize and learn what we have kind of heard in bits and pieces so far. I'm going to go through these points fast because I touched upon this in the last class. What exactly is Agni Tatwa? It is fire, it is electricity, it is electromagnetism, it is plasma, it is light, it is heat, it is radiation, life force, or prana shakti. All of these are, when we say fire, we are not limiting it to just the fire that comes out of when you strike a matchstick to the box, but it is all of these put together. Okay, so please understand it from that point of view. Now let us go a little more deeper. Go back to the drawing board. For some of you, it may be just very rudimentary, but believe me, every time I meditate, go back to the A for apple, B for bat in these elements, new insights come, and that's how you should be. So bear with me and join me in this. All right, where is the Agni Tattva located in our body? Some of you have heard this before, and I said this in the last class as well in the video. It is located in the navel region, around the navel, around the belly button. So that is the main location for Agni. Warmth is there throughout the body, right? But there is a central point, like you have electricity throughout the house, but there is a main switch box that distributes this electricity, that gets the electricity from the city and brings it into the main switch box, as you call it. And then from there, it distributes the electricity to different gadgets. Some are 20 amps, some are 15 amps, some are 5 amps, some are 10 amps. So depending on what is required, it distributes, it's in charge, right? So consider that analogy, keep that in mind. I may refer back to that because that is how this thing works here. the Agni Tatwa. So it is predominantly located in the navel region. It's a broad region. It's not just one pinpointed place. The Manipuraka chakra is behind the belly button. But we are not talking about chakras per se in detail. But first we have to understand these elements. Of course, they are linked to the Manipuraka chakra. But when I say the fire element, it's much broader than the chakra in a physical sense. It covers the entire digestive system. So in the navel region, the Manipuraka chakra and the digestive fire, in other words, mainly when we say digestive fire, yes, it refers to the acids in the stomach that digest food, but it's not limited just to the acids, but the entire process of digesting food and sending it all the way out. The waste matter is sent out, the energies are absorbed, blood comes in through the intestinal walls and absorbs the nutrients and so on and so forth. All of that is part of this, the Agni Tatwa, or the fire element. So this is where it is located. Where is the earth element located? We have learned that earth is below the anus and below. So that the two legs, if you will, the buttocks region, all of that is just pure flesh, right? There is blood flowing in that too. There is warmth in that too. But that is basically the earth element. Okay, where is the water element? Just above that, in the region of the kidney, the sexual organs, all of that deals with water. Then comes the fire element. So this is our way, and kind of this is where I said open intuitively, because when you understand this in our body and you understand how it works outside, then you will link the elements, the way they function in the universe outside, in this planet around us, in life outside, and you compare that and you make the connection and say, aha, what is going on outside is going on inside me as well. And that's the key. Therein lies the connection between us and the elements. So when you're meditating on the fire in your stomach, actually you're automatically invoking, propitiating, intuitively tuning into the warmth that comes from the sun, the fire from the sun. That is the beauty of this. It's connection. So there's no inside outside. After a point, it loses its relevance. Okay. So this is what the Agni Tattva, location of the Agni Tattva in the body mainly, and then of course it's distributed all over. All right. Now, what is the predominant function of this Agni in this particular place as it is located? This Tattva, what is the predominant function? What is the predominant function in our body of the Agni Tattva? What do you think it is? Now, because I said digestive fire, I might say, okay, digestion is one of the functions that helps it achieve this most predominant function. What is it? Digestion is a tool, right? To do what? To distribute. And this is the key to understand. Okay, because this forms the basis of understanding the Agni Tattva. I don't believe there's an aha moment here, but I'm holding it just so that we get our mind to a focused listening and it settles in our mind. It is to distribute the prana, the life force in our body. That is the function of the Agni Tattva. That's why body temperature is so important, right? I mean, a dead man's body is cold. There is no warmth in the body. In other words, there's no life force left in the body. The fact that there is temperature in the body, there's warmth in the body inside, means that the Agni Tattva is functioning. Agni Tattva's predominant function is to maintain and distribute. Let me go to the other one here. It's more clear here. Right, there you go. Agni Tattva main function is to maintain and distribute. These are the two things. That's its main purpose. So that is why in some schools of Vedanta, they consider Agni as a primordial force. That's why Agni is given such great importance. In the yagnas and so on, in the Vedic civilization, they have a pit and the fire is built and everything is offered to the fire, because fire is considered, at one point they considered that as primordial, and of course it moved on, I guess. But those are theories that we don't have to necessarily endorse or subscribe to. It doesn't really matter. They are all there. Whether it's primordial or not is besides the question. What is unquestionable is its importance. The fact that it's in the middle of the body, that means in the center of the universe lies Agni. Agni represents life force. It represents life force. It maintains and distributes life force. I'm using life force as a term that's the way I speak of it in English, but the actual term is prana. Prana, let's take a moment to understand what kind of prana is this. This is not the prana, apana, samana, vyana, udana vayus. Those are 5 vayus, right? This is not the prana, that kind of prana that moves upwards and is in this chest region. That's a different prana. This is the mother prana, the life force that sustains all these other vayus in it, all the nadis, and everything is sustained. One can even say that this prana is the Kundalini Shakti. One can even refer to that because that's how important Agni Tatwa is given. This is where it's in the navel region, just below the navel region is where the Kundalini begins to enter the Sushumna Nadi and begins to go into the center. We'll come to the Nadis towards the end because that is connected with Agni Tattva. So we'll come to that in the end, bear with me. But that's how important it is. So when I talk of prana, this is not a prana vayu I'm talking about. This is prana as the life force. Prana as the basis of life in this universe, in this planet, across all dimensions. Everything that you and I are capable of, from deep sleep to the most creative arts and creative things that we indulge in when we are awake, from one extreme to the other, all of that, all our senses are functioning. Everything that happens in the universe, a grass moves because of prana. A blade of grass moves because of prana. This is prana. This is the life force that is breathed through consciousness and brings about the manifestation of the 3 gunas comes in the form of life force and creates all of this, right? Multiplicity. But the core is prana. Prana is that thing that manifests. And that prana is what is in our body, which gets distributed in the form of vayus to different regions. So when we understand Vayu Tattva, we'll begin to understand that more. But at this point, just understand what is the function of Agni. A function of Agni is to maintain, number one, it has to maintain. That is what our lifestyle is. In our lifestyle, we are going to help maintain Agni, because if we maintain Agni in our body, nurture Agni in our body, then what it does, in turn, Agni maintains, and Agni takes care of the distribution of the life force. Right? It's like having a dog, for a security dog for your home. All you have to do is feed the dog, take care of the dog, make sure he is healthy. He will bark when strangers come. He takes care of the security. That's his nature, to protect the territory. You don't have to teach him to do that, correct? It's something like that. So, of course, we had dogs and they were so friendly that security was the last thing, I guess, on their mind. They thought everyone who came home were friends. And they were 2 really big dogs. Anyway, that's besides the point. The point is that all you and I have to do here, and that's the beauty of it. We don't have to worry about how to distribute prana in the system and what kind of practices. All we need to do is adjust our lifestyle if required, and that's what we are going towards, is to understand how do I nurture, maintain Agni in my body. That's all. And Agni takes care of this. So because the main function of Agni is to maintain this life force and distribute this life force. Any form of sickness, any form of illnesses, any form of any form of mental depressions and so on, all of them are related to Agni. Almost all diseases begin and end with Agni. And almost all diseases and illnesses can be cured. Of course, it needs a tremendous change in lifestyles and all of that. Sometimes it's too late to do that. But all this was taught to children in one generation. So they were well prepared. And so the lifespan in the ancient civilizations were much longer, I believe. And with all this technology and progress and science and all of that, we haven't really done any great miracle in increasing the lifespan. We haven't. The lifespan, average lifespan of a human being today is still more or less the same as it was 300, 400, 500 years ago. But we don't have historical records, we don't have scientific records maintained in from India, where thousands of years ago we have other records through epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata. We learn the lifestyle there was different, and so the lifespan of an individual was much longer. Vedic astrology is designed for a lifespan of 120 years. It was designed for that. So if that was done thousands of years ago, then the rishis perhaps thought, okay, that's the not maximum lifespan, that's perhaps the average lifespan or the maximum lifespan. But still, it's 120 years, not 80 years and 70 years that we think of today, or 90 years, whatever. It is believed Arjuna and the other warriors, the Pandavas, fought when they were 90 years, not 90 plus years, or close to around that age. They were warriors fighting a war actively in the last, after 2/3 of their life, or the last 1/3 of their life, if you will. So that is the health, the vitality, the longevity that Agni provides us. Okay? So let us study this further. What are the sense organs associated with Agni? The first one is the Karmendriya. Karmendriyas, as we study in all these elements, by now you should be familiar. If not, let me quickly say Karmendriya is sense of an organ of action. By itself, it is Jada. Jada means it is not intelligent. The organ of action is feet. The brain has to tell the feet to move, otherwise it won't do anything, right? So feet is associated with Agni Tatwa. I know some of you are thinking, wait a minute, you just said below the anus and buttocks and legs, it's all earth. Where did Agni come in? I also said that compare what's going on in the planet, in the universe, and then you will see the association. So when you dig into the earth and go deep inside, what do you find? You find lava, you find warmth, you find heat. That is what is in our body. So when you go deep inside the earth element, through your legs, going down to your feet, you notice that your feet produces warmth that maintains the rest of the elements. That is why they thought at one point, like I said, that fire is predominant. Now, let's take a simple analogy to make a logical sense out of this, right? What is that analogy? It's winter now here, and there is snow all around our home. So I'm going to step out to pick up my mail from the mailbox. So I wear my hat, I wear my coat, I wear gloves, and then I step out. Now, there is something missing here. It's the best fur coat I'm wearing, the best cap I have, the best gloves I have. It really keeps warm, but I am not wearing shoes. So even that little distance where I have to walk down my driveway, cross the road, pick up the mailbox and come back will be an almost impossible task. Why? But I'm covered fully. My entire body is covered. Isn't Agni in the stomach? I'm protecting it. I'm covering everything. But why is it so difficult? Because our feet, if our feet gets cold, then almost everything else becomes impossible. So where does heat escape from the body at that point? It escapes through the feet. You can play in the snow. Children play in the snow. They make snowmen. They make all these things in the snow in their yard. They play for hours, right? Sometimes they wear gloves, sometimes they don't wear gloves. You can do with hands, but your feet is fully covered. Their feet are all covered. It's almost like, in India we used to call it gum boots. So you have boots that come up to your um, snow boots. Yeah, we call it here snow boots. So you have that is covered right up to your knees. Now you can go skiing, you can do all of that, play in the snow as long as your feet are covered. So if your feet are covered, then you will not feel cold. I experienced this in the Himalayas. As long as I had really good shoes, and and it was a worthwhile investment because it's a must. Because I knew, I still know it, and I strongly subscribe. If you want to keep your body warm, keep your feet warm, everything else becomes easy. That's why we wear socks in the night and so on. So now you get the point. Okay, so feet is Agni. Below your feet lies Agni. Keep that in mind, because we will talk about exercise and so on. Because what is exercise? Moving your feet. There is no exercise without moving your feet. So when you move your feet, even a little bit, walking for examples, increases heat in the body. So karmendriya is the feet. Now right opposite the jnanendriya, the sense of perception or cognition, are the eyes. Eyes cannot see in darkness. They don't function in darkness. They function where there is light. You can see me now because I have a couple of lights on me. Light. I can't see you, but I can see a camera lens in front of me. I can see because of light. If everything is dark, there wouldn't be any meaning in this forum right now. You could probably hear me, but cannot see me. And that would be a podcast, not a video. Eyes play an important role. So Agni Tatwa, Agni maintains, and Agni is expressed through the eyes and through the feet. Agni is light, I said, right? So eyes see, and there is a how do I say this? A kind of a mystical interpretation of the sight is perception. Intuitively, you perceive something which your eyes cannot see, but like for example, I see a person, but that person's body language and something about that person's vibration gives me a different picture that my eyes cannot see, right? Maybe by the way he speaks, or he or she, whatever. What is that? It's perception. That perception is also maintained by Agni. It is that perception which we call intuitive, the gut feeling and the intuitive perception. That perception is developed and maintained by Agni. So Agni is a very powerful, not only in a physical sense, we'll understand it for the most part now in this class and perhaps the next from the point of view of physical application, but also applies in how it affects the mind. So let's see how we study that, how this lesson goes. So how do we maintain and nurture this Agni element? So that's all right. Now I know what are the two senses that are primarily related to Agni. And so now the question comes, how do we maintain and nurture this Agni element in the body? Appaya, as he told me, his name was Appaya in Puttaparthi. He would, in Prashantanilayam, in Baba's ashram. He was a gentleman who would come sit and have Baba's darshan from distance, sit still like a rock, almost like a rock, and go away. And we students would be sitting on the mandir veranda watching Baba walk among the devotees. And seeing him daily walk among the devotees, our eyes would drift, at least I can speak for myself, my eyes would drift to the devotees who will be looking at Baba. Not just looking only at Baba, but also the devotees who will be looking at Baba. And I was always amazed at the amount of devotion, or there were pain in some faces, seeking relief, there was devotion, and there's so much of mixed emotions there. Anyway, my eyes fell on this one gentleman who just calmly would sit, no rushing to touch his feet, no offering letters, nothing. And he caught my attention. I observed him for a couple of days, and then I approached him to teach me. And I knew he knew yoga. Just by the way he sat, I knew he knew yoga. I said, you have to teach me yoga and meditation. He said, no, who am I, Babu? I'm not going to teach you. And he spoke Tamil because by the way he tied his dhoti and kurta that he had, I suspected he was Tamilian. He was very dark. So I requested him, and I mean, anyway, long story short, I don't want to get digressed here. He taught me wonderful lessons in in-depth yoga. He's the one who introduced me to these kind of teachings in very short terms, and he set me off on my own. But he changed the course of my path to a much wider understanding, much greater understanding of what yoga is. So one day when I was sitting with him, I casually asked him, I said, if you don't mind, I asked him his name at some point, and then he said, you can call me Appaya. I said, okay, Appaya. And he said he was from Payani, a South Indian, a place in South India in Tamil Nadu, which is also dedicated to the son of Shiva's energy. So I asked him one day, how old are you, sir? He seemed much older than me, of course. I was in 23, 24 at that time. And he said that he was plus 70. And he just smiled. And he looked nowhere close to 70. Nowhere close to 70. His skin was so taut and tight. And he was just, it was amazing. I didn't believe him even for a second. I just smiled. I said, no, really. He said, that is the truth. I never speak lies. And I said, how do you do that? How do you do that? How do you maintain this youthfulness? How do you maintain this vitality? How do you maintain this energy? Because I wanted to ask this question to Indira Devi, who was a teacher who I saw once perform in my presence, but I never got to talk to her. And Appaya smiled very simply, and he said something which I can never forget. He said, there are only two things, Sundar, you have to remember to maintain vitality and youthfulness, vitality, strength. There's only two things. A flexible spine. He said something in Tamil, but this is the meaning, but I cannot repeat that for... There was a phrase in Tamil he used for this, but I can't remember what that was. A flexible spine and a small stomach. That's all he said. The only two things you need to know to maintain good health. Only two things. Flexible spine, small stomach. Guess what is that? What that means in today's world? Flexible spine, exercise, small stomach, diet. Diet and exercise is what everybody is screaming on top of the world and top of the platforms. This is the way to health. And then he explained the entire beauty, vitality, and youth is in this region. And he held one hand just above the sternum and the other hand just below the navel, right, the midsection of the body. And he held these two palms there, and he said, just below this, I'm sorry, just in this region, what we call the core, this, if you maintain this, then you understood youthfulness, vitality, and health. So diet and exercise is what he talked about in the very simple terms. It's very simple to listen to. It's perhaps simple to understand. But what makes it difficult is the application of that. And from that time onwards, I decided to pay attention to my food. And over the years, over the decades, I've come a long way in changing my food habits. So there's no element of control for me. I'm not trying to control, use willpower and all that. It's very easy for me to stick to what somebody else would say, oh my God, you are so strict in your diet. I don't feel it's strict anymore. It's like, these Chinese acrobats are so good in their rope tricks. They can be walking on the rope and talking to people and carrying like a couple of chairs on their head or whatever it is. And they do all of that. For them, it is like a walk in the park. Why? Because they have practiced this for years and years, and it's become their second nature. So for me, over the years, diet has never been an issue. It was, we went back and forth, and then it's kind of steadied. I will never dare say I have 100% control over it in anything. I don't say that. That's not my way of expressing. I always, I'm humbled always by the universe whenever I say that. So I don't say that anymore. But I know that to a large extent, diet is become an easy path for me. And today when I'm sharing this is because of experience of how I come from a family of hereditary. These are all when they say talk of genetic and it's in your DNA and so on and so forth. I asked this once to Appaya also, what about hereditary? My father has got blood pressure and diabetes, and what about me? He just shook his head. He just kept shaking his head. He said, put that all aside. Put that all aside. Just maintain the Agni. Take care of the fire here. So, I can speak out of experience now that I don't take a single pill for anything. I don't take any medicine for anything. My blood pressure is absolutely normal. 110 by 70, whatever, 112, 115, 120 is. So, of course, at times it does go to 125 or even 130. It touches and comes back. But normally, it never goes beyond 115 or 118. On the higher side, it never goes up to 80 also. I don't know when it was last that I remember seeing it 80. Anyway, the point here is that was blood pressure, which is supposed to be in my family and in my blood, in my DNA. It's not showed up yet. It's the same thing with diabetes. It's not showed up yet. So the point here is, it did show up when my snake, when the snake bit me and so on. And I was glad that the doctor said your sugar is very high. Baba told me your sugar is very high. Control. And then that's another story. I won't get into those kind of stories. My point here is, I controlled everything without the necessity for going into this kind of medicine and dependence on pills. I rejuvenated my body, if you will, to the extent that I have to earn my health, and I earn it well. And now it's begun to pay me dividends, right? And that's the point. That's the point I'm coming to. So, to a large extent, I owe it to both these two principles of maintaining your core, the feet and the eyes, the diet and the exercise. And that's what it is all about. Helps maintaining Agni Tatwa. Now, we will talk about mantras and japas and all for the Agni and all of that. But don't rely only on that. Those are most subtle, will take much longer. If they want to be effective, first the vehicle has to respond to Agni, and then all the other things will fall in place, right? If your car doesn't even start, putting the best and high premium gas into the fuel tank is not going to help. So you have to first make sure the car starts, the tires are inflated well, and the body of the car is in great shape, and all of that is roadworthy. Then you go and put premium oil, and you do japam and pranayama and all of that. Then all of that will make it even more efficient and wonderful, correct? But first, the car has to be ready. In other words, so don't. It's not one or the other. It is one over the other. It's always supplemental, complementary, not one excludes the other. So, having said that, let's go to the foods that nourish Agni in the body. Now, here I want to introduce you to a deeper understanding of this fire concept. There is an external fire. Okay, let me get out of the picture here so that it becomes more. Give me 1 second. I don't remember where I was. There, that makes sense. Okay. All right. There is the external fire, right? I couldn't get any other picture because these are pictures I have to purchase, and I looked for something which you use in the kitchen. I didn't get it, but this is there. There's an external fire. You get an idea. You and I don't really cook in the garden like this, but sometimes we might do when we go camping. But we do cook in the house. We use electricity to cook, or we use gas stoves to cook. But the idea is we cook food. So what is cooking the food? The external fire is cooking the food. So when we talk about Agni that nourishes our body, we have to understand this, that there are two fires. One is external and the other one is the internal fire. And for this, I'm just putting this picture of the entire digestive tract, beginning with the stomach, and it also includes the liver, the pancreas, and all of that. Everything that is processing the food, distributing energy, all of that, including the ones that eliminate waste. But at that point, you're going down into water and earth element, correct? But the transformation part of it, the absorption, kidneys, liver, and all of that work, they're all connected. So that's why when we study these elements, don't put watertight compartments. Is kidney water or fire? Predominantly water, but without the ability to transform, kidney doesn't, it makes no sense. So there is an energy of transformation in the kidney as well, because it's processing something, correct? And changing the contents and passing off the urine in one way. The liver does the same thing. So they also have the fire element in them. So the internal fire, let's call that the digestive system, if you will. The internal fire, the ability to transform food. External fire also has the ability to transform food, right? You put rice in it, it cooks. You put vegetables in it, it cooks. You put oil in it, it cooks. Same thing. You put anything into your mouth, the stomach tries to cook it. In other words, absorb it, transform it, and pass the waste outside. Please understand external fire, internal fire. Okay, how do we apply this? What is the principle that I have practiced and I continue to practice? And I am not religious about this belief or practice. I make a lot of exceptions. But this is the basis of my belief and practice. What is that? If the external fire does all the cooking of your food, the external fire is absorbing the nutrients. In other words, we say that when you cook food, a lot of nutrients is dead. It kills the nutrients. I don't want to use the word kill because it's Agni. Agni transforms. So the external fire absorbs all the nutrients. Those nutrients don't go into your body. That is absorbed in the external fire, right? It has no relevance. And then Agni leaves behind the leftover. We put it on our plate and we eat it. Now, there is some element of nutrients, of course. There is something that goes into our system. Yes. The internal fire has very little work now to transform because it's already cooked, digested by the external fire, if you will, for the lack of any other term. I'm just using these terms loosely, saying it's digested outside. In other words, it's cooked outside. Then when you eat it, the internal digestive fire does still digest the food, but it has got very little work to do. Very little work to do. What happens to muscles when you don't use them? What happens to muscles when you don't use them? Let us say the child falls 10 times and you say, oh gosh, he's not going to learn to walk at all. I'm sure no parents do this, but I'm giving this bizarre analogy because that analogy is how we apply it into our body. So the child falls 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, and the parents decide, you know what, let's take a decision. Let's give him crutches and let him lean on the crutches and walk. Let us teach him that. And somehow the child learns to walk on a crutch. And he grows up. His leg muscles, can it develop? Never develop, right? This is like I said, bizarre analogy. But let's take that extreme case. The leg muscles never develop. Anytime without the crutches, he can never walk. He can barely take 2 steps, then the legs pain because they never developed muscles. The muscles have never gathered lactic acid or developed strength or anything like that. So he's always dependent on crutches. Now, if muscles, the body needs that kind of training in every aspect. Coming back to the fire element, it is when we don't give enough challenge for the internal fire to digest food, to cook the food, because it's already cooked. Then the internal fire says, oh, it's cooked, good. I'm just going to breeze through this. So when we are young, we are able to, when we say this is a standard thing that you keep hearing. Oh, now you are young, you can eat everything. When you come to my age, you will see what happens. You can't eat all this. So enjoy now, you will say, right? This is all my uncles would say, my aunts would say, and I'm now perhaps much older than them when I first heard them say that, and I can still digest food. The point here is that when the external fire does all the cooking, the internal fire is not challenged enough. And so from childhood, we eat predominantly, if more than 80% of your intake of food that you call food is all cooked, right? If we take 80% of the food that goes in is already cooked, then the stomach digestive juices, the Agni Tatwa in you is barely getting any chance to express itself. And therefore, it atrophies, just like a muscle which is never used. It says, oh, okay, I can't. And then when you grow older, the digestive power is already going down slow, more and more and more. So as we age more and more, the digestive process becomes slower. We are not able to digest too much food. And then therefore, it just slowly, in other words, the Agni is slowly getting snuffed. That is why Krishna said, Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Praninam Deham Ashritaha. Praninam, and all the living beings, Deham, body, Ashrita, I live there. Where? As Aham Vaishvanaro, the Vaishvanara Agni. I am that Agni. This is why I linked Agni with the Prana, the life force. That Agni is what maintains life in our body. In the Vedic rituals, many of you are from India, and you see these Vedic rituals, a lot of fire rituals are done. What do you think they put into the fire? Raw twigs. They pour ghee, clarified butter, and things that fuel the fire, right? They don't fill and dump cooked elements into the fire. They put raw grains into the fire, so it will burn. And so I am laying the basis, a strong basis, hopefully, for you to consider the importance of raw fruits and vegetables. But it's very important for you to understand this principle is where I'm basing it from. Could I be wrong? Yeah, of course, it's not a perfect principle. It's not a perfect law. Because there are certain foods that you cannot eat raw. Some of these grains have to be cooked. Yes, I agree. Potato, for example, cannot be eaten raw. Carrot, for example, if you bite 90% of the carrot cannot be digested, it eliminates, the system eliminates. So some kind of blanching or some kind of heating it up or juicing helps. In some of these vegetables have to be changed in a little manner outside to help our system, correct? So it doesn't apply throughout. But my basic question is, we are become so relied, let me put it this way, we rely so heavily now on processed food, and we go to restaurants, we eat cooked food, we cook food at home, it is all cooked and processed and cooked and processed. If most of our food is like that, then ask yourself this question, why am I not surprised that this Agni element is not nurtured and maintained? And because the Agni element is not challenged, and because the Agni in the body is not burning in its optimum, every other illness or disease or misalignment happens. Because Agni is a center which helps nourish the body, yes, but it also nourishes the two elements above it, the two elements below it. Right? You have earth, water and earth below. You have wind and space above. Agni is in the center. Agni draws the energy from down, passes it up. Agni does all that transformation. So it is very important for Agni for spirituality, meditation and so on. That's a whole different thing. But without basic health, what meditation, what experience can happen? You need a strong nervous system and a tremendous physical body to be able to contain these kind of higher dimensional experiences. For that to happen in our lives. Otherwise, we have to listen to others and just stick to an element of belief and say, oh yeah, he said, she said. What is our experience? How do we experience? How do you experience? How do I experience? For that, Agni is important. Okay? So Agni becomes very important. So let me start this today, and we'll see how this proceeds, because it's 8:50 now. But let me start this discussion here. Just let it go here. So I'm like I said, laying the foundation for raw vegetables and fruits. We talked about taste, right? Conquering taste, because water element is connected with the tongue. And then now we are coming to the fire element. I'm just giving you a picture here, a very beautiful. Look at that colorful picture. Look at how bright and beautiful and colorful that food is. What happens to all this beautiful color when we cook it? For the most part, what happens? It's gone. Doesn't that tell you something? The Agni, the eyes that sees all this color in raw foods and vegetables and fruits. Now the Agni, the same eyes, is not seeing that color anymore. What it's seeing is just one mushed up grayscale, if you will. There is some color, of course, in cooked food, but very not like this. There is a concept in vegetarianism. I'm not even going to talk about meat and fish and all. That's something I don't recommend. I don't practice. So we will leave that for some other. None of that really helps with Agni at all. Okay. If that did, then the Western world and people who eat meat would have been on the peak of their health. So I am not for that. I don't think our bodies are designed to eat meat. So we won't get into that, because I don't. If I eat, then I can tell you the pros and cons of it, right? I don't. So I'll be talking about from based on what I read, and that won't be, because you can also do that reading. But I don't subscribe to that idea itself, because that logic itself doesn't apply to me, eating meat. So I will leave that outside the discussion. In vegetarianism, there is a concept. What is that concept? As opposed to non-vegetarians. Pure vegetarians I'm talking of. What is that? Vegetarians eat what is alive. True vegetarians, that's why I said true vegetarians, eat what is alive. Non-vegetarians eat what is dead. When you see these right now, these pictures, and you go to the market, and I'm not much of a foodie, but my consciousness just light up when I do see colors like this. Because what I see there is so much prana emanating from each of those vegetables. So much life. Because they are alive. They are alive. Vegetables are alive. When they are spoiled, you know how they smell, right? Rotten vegetables, we say. Rotten apple or rotten, any vegetable that gets rotten, you know how they smell. So those are dead vegetables. These are alive. When you cook them, they don't get that freshness, because there is hardly any life left. You don't kill them fully. No matter how much you cook, you can eat them. But then now you have to preserve them, and so on and so forth. And also you have to add color to it. You have to add smell to it with spices and so on. Otherwise, by itself, everything is gone. The point I'm trying to make is, are you eating that which is alive? And what's my point here? This is where you have to think of it intuitively. Okay? When I take a vegetable that is alive and I maintain the life in that vegetable, maintaining the life, I consume that vegetable in the form of a juice. I blend it and drink it, or I eat it, or bite it and eat it. However, if I do that, the prana shakti, the life force in that vegetable enters me and adds to my life force in my system. That prana becomes my prana, merges into my prana, because we are connected to all of these through these 5 elements. These are all extensions of us. So when I take that prana and eat, that becomes a prana into my system because it is alive. If it is dead while I'm consuming, in other words, if I've cooked it and beaten the life out of it, destroyed it of all the nutrients and all the good chemicals and everything, the minerals and all of that you see in the charts today, right? I don't want to get into which is high in vitamin C, A, B, and all of that. All of that you can Google any vegetable and you'll see nowadays, right? I don't want to repeat those things. But all of that, what happens to those nutrients? Most of them die. Why? Because you're killing it by cooking it. I know I'm putting a very bad spin on cooking, but please bear with me, because if you are searching for everlasting longevity, in other words, everlasting health rather, and graceful aging and longevity, then one has to understand what is the secret of that. This is the secret. Not eating more. Eating more kills us. Please know, eating more kills us. Eating less is what keeps us alive. Okay? So let us not get obsessed with this idea of eating. The quality is what matters than quantity. And so in today's class, I want you to take home these points. Internal fire versus external fire. Then prana. Agni maintains prana, nourishes prana, and distributes prana in the system. 3. How do I get the prana into my body? Through food. If I take something alive and eat it, the life from that vegetable or fruit goes into me and adds to my life force. And that life force in turn maintains the Agni. Agni in turn maintains the life force. That becomes a very virtuous altar here. And now the Agni begins to burn brightly because it is getting to digest raw life force, take the life force, the nutrients, and send it into the system. That is the beauty of eating raw. Then when you eat greens, when you eat red vegetables, look at those pictures there. When you eat red strawberries or grapefruits or bananas, and so there are fruits, there are vegetables. So at the end of it, can we include raw salads in our meal as the main meal, at least once in a while to begin with, and eventually settle down for that? Where in today's, our lifestyle, Maya's lifestyle and our lifestyle, except for these really warm winters where we make exceptions when eating salad is so cold, she made, what is it you made last time in the KYG kitchen?
Green soup.
The green soup. Even that is not cooked really, that's more of blanching. That's why I kept asking her, how long do you take it? 5 minutes, 7 minutes? Because you don't let it cook too much. You still keep the green leaves alive because that's the main source of prana there. But even that, most of the time I eat them raw. But sometimes when it becomes very, very cold, you want something warm in your body. These are extreme cases, right? Extreme winters. During extreme winter, only Jan, February, up to March, and maybe into April when it becomes really, really cold. We make these kind of exceptions. But even then, that's my only meal a day. Or I have berries and nuts, which are again raw. The point here is 90%, I can say today, of our intake is raw. We don't cook. 10%, 15% we do cook. In other words, over a weekend, she wants to try something. Maya wants to try something new in the kitchen. Somebody has to eat, right? I said, all right, let's do something. It also breaks the body should never go into a plateau of, okay, I cannot do this, I cannot do that. You shock the system once in a while. So we will learn all that as we go along. But it is all controlled way, not based on whims and fancies. Predominantly, if even 50% of if your intake is raw, 50% of your food intake is in the form of raw, trust me, your body will undergo a metamorphosis. Not overnight. It will take a year, 2 years for that to happen. So for 2 years, at least, you have to slowly bring this in and then settle down. These are the days I'm going to have salad. These are the days I'm going to have, and then you will notice that having salads, these are not tasty. And I'll finish it in less than a minute now. I know we are running out of time. It's not lack of taste. You can put the greatest chutneys in it, and you can put so many things that you can make it so tasty that you will not want to eat cooked food, because cooked food just has one taste of garam masala or whatever masala you put. But here you get to taste all the six tastes and so on. So it becomes, I want to sell that to you. I want to market raw vegetables to you, because I know what a blessing it is in maintaining the Agni Tatwa to a large, really, really large extent. So please think about what you heard. And again, there are exceptions for people who are under medications of sorts, who you can't make this change overnight beyond the age. I don't recommend these. But if you have children in the home, and if you are fairly young in heart and in age, then try to make changes. Otherwise, big red flags are going to come, and you'll that's it. You will throw in the towel and say, okay, it is all right. Now I can't do anything. Those days we could do anything. And you get into a philosophical mood and sit back. Life need not work that way, right? So please, I speak this from experience. I speak this from really benefiting so much from the wounds get healed faster. You rarely catch a cold. The frequency between two colds goes between 2 years, 3 years, once in 2-3 years, because of something that you would have done, eaten something, or gone through mentally something that some immune system would have lowered, and you would have developed a cold. Those kind of things happen once in a while. Otherwise, the body is in great shape. It recovers very fast. So please consider taking nature's food just the way nature designed it for us. And those that can be eaten raw, and we'll discuss a little more about it in the next class, a little more details I will go into. Those can be eaten raw, try and eat them raw. Fruits especially. Fruits, of course, is given. All of us love fruits. Most of them, at least, are sweet and tasty. And so bring fruits into your diet. Again, we'll go to not too much of fruits again, because there's a lot of sugar in it. But yes, fruits is on the one side, vegetables on the side. Be creative. Think of how can I make it so creative and maintain the color in these, maintain that freshness. And as I eat, I become then you don't have to tell your children chew 32 times. You have to chew them. You have to chew this food a lot times, right? To put it in. It comes automatically. But when I eat rice which is cooked, then I hardly have to bite. It just slips into my mouth. We eat rice perhaps once in a month or once in 2 months. It's been years now. So these are the things you have to consider, please. So then you are understanding the Agni Tatwa in the body. Otherwise, it remains only a theoretical concept. And Kaivalya Marga, as I call it, is for us sadhakas, as people in this path wanting to experience Kaivalya. This is one royal way. So let us bring the satsang to an end. So thank you for your patience. Think about these things and let me know your thoughts, and we will take it from here in the next class. Thank you so much for watching. We'll end this class with 1 Om and 3 Shantis. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.